Hey Lodi residents and friends of social media, welcome to episode number 4 of the Lodi Show. And today we are joined by Lodi's own Two for the Road. And we're going to talk a little bit about Lodi, and we're going to have them perform today. So stick around and hopefully you'll enjoy this show. So let me first introduce both gentlemen here today. We have Mr. Jack Sapiti and we have Artie Magliconico, otherwise known as Artie Mags.
Artie Mags.
Artie Mags.
Me, huh?
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Lodi and where you guys, you're both lifelong Lodi residents, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So Jack, where in Lodi did you grow up?
Well, I grew up on Westervelt Place, you know, and that was the neighborhood that I grew up with all my friends from that area. We used to play in the school ground at the middle school back then, and of course it was the high school, which I graduated there in 1970. Actually, that was 50 years ago, as we speak.
Wow.
And we didn't have a class reunion because of the virus. So, but yeah, that's.
Well, speaking of the virus, we were scheduled to do this several months ago.
Yeah.
And then actually the virus came in, and we weren't able to schedule different things at the time.
Well, they're going on right after the Scalia gentleman. Yeah,
right,
that was a great show,
Scalia,
by the way. That's right. And then we had a cancel.
Darren.
Yeah.
So, and Art, where were you?
I was born and raised up on Arnott Street, corner of Arnott and Westminster Place, right down from the tank, the Lodi water tower. And we were raised up there, and I had a beautiful childhood on Westervelt Place. I write about it a lot in my artful thinking column. And so, that's our agent, Jack.
Oh,
Well, you know what he said? My agent told me, Art, if you want your name up in lights, change it to exit. So, we're rolling.
We are rolling.
So I was born and raised up there, over by the corner store. And all my cousins.
What corner store is that?
It was called, when I was a little kid, it was called Rocky's. The Albano family owned the corner store, corner of Arnott Street and Westervelt. Okay. And right now, that whole area where I grew up is all a parking lot now. But there was my house, there was the Levy residence, Sal the barber, and the Fago family.
So your house was where were the North Pole or
right? Yeah, they bought that land, and I moved to Hillside Place with my family, and but Lodi was a paradise. I'm sure it still is, but I'm not as involved. You know, as a little kid, everything is so grandiose. You know, it's
yeah.
So that was Lodi.
Well, just a little bit before we even go further with Art. Art is the Lodi historian. You also write an article for the Gazette newspaper,
right.
which we're going to get into in a couple of minutes. We'll talk a little bit about the Gazette newspaper and how you got affiliated with that. But back into Lodi, and so you grew up on You both actually grew up on Westervelt Place. Then did you know each other?
Well, there's a couple of years between me and her. I knew who Artie was, you know, growing up. You know, he was a little older than me, and but he was from the neighborhood, so you know. And we got started maybe about 10 years ago with this singing thing, where we would do some shows, local shows, and it kind of just snowballed
from that.
You know,
and that's going to be one of my questions in a little bit. But you grew up on Westervelt Place, so what grammar school did you guys go to?
I went to Columbus, graduated in 1961.
From Columbus School?
Yeah. Miss Diorio was my teacher, Miss Anacarico, and great memories.
Columbus School.
Columbus School.
And Jack?
I went to Roosevelt, which was the old Roosevelt School, which burnt down, I believe, in 1973, actually. And and then I graduated there in '66.
From Roosevelt.
So there's a 5-year difference between Artie and I.
And then you both went to, which is the middle school now, but you both went to Lodi High School on First Street.
Correct, yes.
And graduated, both graduated from there.
Yep, class of '65.
And you both still live in Lodi, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
No other town.
Where am I going to go?
Yeah. So here's my question. So how did you guys wind up meeting each other? I mean, you met when you were kids, or?
No, well, actually, at the time, fellow by the name of Lou Jasmine. He was a teacher at Lodi High School, and he had this show called Lodi Late Night.
Yes.
So he invited me on as historian, and you know, I used to do a weekly segment on his show. And then we decided to put a little music into it. So we knew Jack was the king of karaoke back then. So we told Jack to come on, and right, you did a few shows, and from there, you know, we just sort of like clicked. But at first it was all karaoke stuff, and then you know, met up with Joe Bartoloni, who I know all my life, and he said, "Artie, why don't you strum the guitar a little bit?" So, and this is going way back now. Joe Bartoloni, my cousin Lou Pizzenti, and Johnny Pizzenti had a little band, and Joe was very young, so and we used to play at all of our family functions. And so Joe says, "Listen, let me teach you how to play a Beatle tune." But anyway, I digress a little bit, but that's how me and Jack started.
So you really didn't know each other from the neighborhood then?
I graduated with his sister.
Yeah. But no, because we
you never hung out together?
No, well, there was that age gap. You know how that is.
Exactly.
You know, I had all the guys from Westervelt and Burns Ave, you know, First Street. We hung out at Paps.
Right.
That was the hangout for the guys from that area. Right. You know, I used to be in that luncheonette at night on a weekday. Vinnie Paps, the whole family, great family. We were there. Yeah. You know, play the jukebox. Hope I said that right. I can't get that word right sometimes. But anyway, that was it. Then I always loved music. You know, when the Beatles came out in '64, it was like, what is this? This is great. You know, I was 11 years old at the time, so it was just something I always liked to sing. I sang at my wedding. Right. You know, that started doing little things like that, and it just, you know, just have a little fun.
We're going to talk a little bit about the music and your influences in a couple more questions. But these next few questions are going to be directed right to Artie, who is our Lodi historian. So Art, just a couple of quick questions about Lodi that the people here in the borough may not know about Lodi so much, especially if they've just recently moved into Lodi. They may not know the whole story about Lodi. But when was Lodi actually, how did Lodi come up with its name?
Well, first of all, like we were talking about the Rennie brothers before. Rennie was called the father of Lodi. He came here and they called it Rennieville back in like 1825. And then actually, after he went bankrupt and died on Delglen Avenue where he used to live, Lafayette from France came over here with his army and sort of like, you know, took over like martial law. He was taking over, you know, the villages and boroughs in this area. Hasbrouck was called Bogart Heights, and you know, it was Garfield, Lodi, Wellington. So instead of calling it Rennieville, they wanted to call it Lafayette, Lodi. So Lafayette says, well, there's so many towns named after me, why don't we name it after a town in Italy that Napoleon used as a stronghold during the Napoleonic Wars. Let's name it Lodi. And sure enough, that was it. That's how Lodi got its name. And it wasn't, contrary to belief, it wasn't Rennie who named the town Lodi, it was Lafayette. So just to straighten that out.
You're saying a Frenchman actually named the town Lodi after a city in
a city in Milan, Italy, right? In the county of Lombardy, Italy.
Right.
And that was Lodi.
So I guess that'll also explain, we have a street called Lafayette Place here in Lodi, which I would have never put that, so that's something new that I just learned right now. So
I'll tell you, it's amazing.
That's probably how they got the name Lafayette Place for that.
Yeah, right. And there's so many other names that go way back. You know, when the Dutch settled here, the Tuyun family, the Mercers, the Bogetters, Brevoort, Dr. Brevoort, who was a famous doctor here in those days. I can go on because you know, it's just endless information that keeps popping up. And I want to say one thing too, speaking about the borough of Lodi and the Lodi Library, and I want to say this on the air, without the Lodi Library, none of this would be possible for me. because they give me carte blanche there to use all their material, their computers, research. They allow me to do my column there for the newspaper, so I'd like to thank Karen Gost and our crew for making all this possible. Thank you. And the town of Lodi, the borough.
It's been good to you then?
Yeah.
The borough of Lodi's been good to you?
I love this town, yeah.
Good to know. So, about how big is Lodi in square miles?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, maybe I have it on here, wait a minute.
Well, I do actually know.
Oh, what is it?
2.29 miles,
Oh,
square
it is.
miles.
All right.
Is
That was a trick question.
How
That was what throw this away.
How about the first mayor of Lodi?
First mayor was a fellow by the name of Daniel Cook, 1895.
So that was the first actual mayor?
First actual mayor. And let's see, Lodi became a village in 1825, and I told you about the Roney brothers who opened up the Calico printing. And in December of 1894, Lodi became it became incorporated. And then in 1895, Daniel Cook became our first mayor.
And how about our first police chief? Do you know that?
John Pizzoro.
No.
No.
Actually, I actually had to get that myself, and I had.
That's a good. You know, I probably have that.
I have that
at home.
myself here too. From my notes of who the first actual chief, it's Chief Thomas Davis.
I read that. Yeah.
He was our first police chief here. So you both guys were around. Let's put it this way, been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Old Main Street. Now, as a kid growing up, I mean, I always, you know, people that used to come in my dad's shop, and you know, they used to always talk about the Old Main Street. I mean, I was a little kid when they started changing things around here, and I'm sure maybe a lot of people out there that recently moved into Lodi or have been in Lodi only a few years have no idea what Old Main Street, when they hear Old Main Street, what's Old Main Street? What was Old Main Street in Lodi really like at the time growing up here in the town? I mean, I know there was a lot of stores and different shops that went along.
Well, it was like a community center, all of Main Street, from Panama's all the way down to Humphreys.
Now, Panama's, for some people who do not know, Panama's down by the Dunkin' Donuts area on Main Street. There used to be a hot dog stand or a hot dog business called Panama's. They used to deep fry the hot dogs. They were great hot. That, as a kid, I remember going into Panama's myself.
Yeah, right. It was right near you.
So
down at that end. Yeah.
So, go ahead, Art. Panama's.
Well, Panama's got its name. The owner always used to wear a Panama hat, and they called it Panama's from then. But Lodi, right, Jack? Was the Main Street was like a community center where everybody congregated and conversed and shopped, and parades, and it started, and just to let you know, there was, next to Cerbello's, there was the lot.
Oh, yeah.
And
now, Cerbello's being where, though, now?
It was
that was down on South Main Street, wouldn't it have been,
No, it was on...
No, it was next to Lodi Radio.
Yeah.
And there was a big lot where Dr. Stassi's office used to be.
But we're in conjunction to where we are right now. I mean,
Right across the street,
Oh,
by
so
Kmart.
Behind the
really?
Kmart.
Is that the
Yeah.
area?
Kmart was Main Street.
Yeah.
That,
Right.
that was the heart of Main Street right there. And it was a lot that all the cool kids from Lodi used to hang out in the lot. And there were the Panama boys, that were the younger set, but like the cool kids from Lodi, maybe juniors and seniors in high school, they used to wear the lot boy jackets, the high roll collars, the Italian knit shirts, and my cousin Johnny Maggs was one of them there. Right, Jack?
Yeah. Then there was the guys from Wright's Village. They were called the Hole Boys. I just do a shout out
Is
for
that
those
right?
guys. Yeah, the guys that all were up from Wright's Village area. You know, that was another gang of guys that came from that. And of course, we cannot not mention the Paps Boys, which I was one of the original members of that gang. But it was all fun back then. You
So
know.
there was a hierarchy.
Yeah.
There was Humphreys, the kids,
Oh.
Humphreys Pizzeria, which was across the street from Lincoln School, by the triangle there. Those were the kids basically who went to Wilson School. They used to hang out at Humphreys, and my cousin Philip, Richie, the Merlot boys, and all those kids. And then, you know, it came down, you know, all the way, progressed all the way down to Carvel, the lot.
Right, now the Carvel, if my memory serves, with the stories that I heard, where Carvel was near where the...
Modern bakery, right across the street.
So, actually where the dollar store, the Dollar Tree is now.
Where Pergamon is, right? It was on the corner of Union and Main Street.
Right, so where the Dollar Tree, in that area, where Burger King, in the lot of the Burger King was where the Carvel ice cream used to be.
Yeah, you're right about that, yeah.
I mean, I never remember it, but I mean, I've always heard stories about it, and you had Modern Bakery.
Yeah.
Also, I guess one of the big taverns back in the day was Tantillo's, correct?
Oh, yeah. I never went in there, no. No. My Uncle Joe used to own Rodolphus Hall on Nicholson Street.
Oh, Rodolfo's.
Yeah.
Rodolfo's, yeah.
And
Yeah,
then there was Pugy's across the street. What a
Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, this town, it's still beautiful, but I mean, it was so together and so, I mean, you could walk down any street in Lodi and know most of the people on those blocks.
Right.
I could walk anywhere up on the hill and know every single person in every house, every family, and that's what made it so, it was magical. It really, and plus, don't forget, I grew up during the baby boom age, so all you had to do, I mean, there were kids wholesale all over the place. All you had to do was walk out of your house, bounce a ball twice, and you had 30 kids over ready to play ball.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I personally, I mean, I'm not with the baby booms, but I grew up on the avenues, and I remember back when I was a kid, there were kids just all over the place on the avenues, the Woodmere section, it was just everybody.
Oh, yeah, the
Kennedy
Woodmere
Park
section.
and the Lunas, naturally the Lunas.
The Lunas,
you know, the Kennedy Park area. So I mean, we just had, I mean, even my childhood growing up on the avenues, it was a great experience all the way around.
I mean, I can remember just when you crossed the bridge here by the Boys Club.
Yes.
On the right, as soon as you got over the bridge was the Pink Elephant Restaurant. You remember that? Right by
the Manzella family.
There was across was Dr. Dalio on the left side, and all different storefronts until you made the turn. There was Ben's Beer Garden, or was that called the Monkey House back down? Yeah, that was the turn. You made the turn. I mean, I used to ride my bicycle all over the place, and you know, you'd go down. It'd be the old American Theater, right? And then the police department was down there. Dolan Studio.
The American
I'm just thinking
Theater used to
of,
be owned by the Basile family, Basile, and they were real community conscious. Every Thanksgiving, they would give away turkeys to the patrons, and the people who don't forget, now that was during the Depression, and a lot of people couldn't even afford a turkey. So what they would give them the turkey. And they would give them the dishes and spoons, and they'd even cook the turkey for all the people.
And where was this on?
It was over.
What was the name of the business?
The American Theater.
Oh, okay.
That was and the Basile family owned the American Theater, and they used to have these community functions to help people during the Depression who were starving.
Well, just since you say that, we here at the Lodi Police Department, our PBA Local 26. For the past few years, we've been also donating turkeys to families in need.
Right, that's great.
We've been reaching out to those families, and so we've been doing that ourselves here with the PBA.
That's nice.
You guys are doing a great job, by the way.
Well, we try.
I mean, really, you know, I feel safe.
That's
all I can say.
Most important. Most important. I do want to touch back on, and we spoke about it a little bit yesterday, and you said you do remember it. We just recently celebrated, or I shouldn't say celebrated, we just memorialized the 57th anniversary of the murders of Sergeant Peter Voto and Officer Gary Tedesco. At that time, being 1963, we still talk about it today, we still remember, it's a big part of being a Lodi police officer, to remember those two gentlemen, two officers. What was your recollection of at that time in 1960, even if you could remember back in with the
I remember the morning of, it was in August, and my father,
yes,
he was
August 26th.
Yeah, I remember I was 11 years old, and my father told me that two police officers in Lodi were shot. You know, I'm 11 years old, you know, and then I grew up with Pete Voto's son, was Petey. the younger, he had two sons, Jerry and we used to call him Petey. And I grew up with him, and I go, wow, this kid lost his father. I felt, really felt at that moment that a tragedy, but you can never forget certain things in your life, they just stay with you.
And that's one of them?
That's one of them, absolutely, yeah. That day, I still remember it, yeah.
And Art?
Well, I remember, yeah. My Uncle Andrew Pizzenti, who lived upstairs, he came down and told us, and what I remember, I knew these people, the Tedesco kid and Pete Voto, and like I said, Lodi was a closed community back then, and we knew each other. Andy Voto was the chief of police. But the thing that stands out in my mind, and I'll never forget this, me and my friends went to the cemetery for the funeral up at St. Mary's, I believe it was. And it was very sad. And his daughter, as they were lowering him into the grave, and I get choked up even when I think about it now, she bolted to the grave and tried to jump in and saying, "Daddy, Daddy, take me with you, take me with you." Never forget that. And that's what I remember most about that. It was one of Lodi's darkest hours.
Do you remember, or do you even recall the bar that it was called the Angel Lounge on it was Baldwin Ave, right by Route 46? Do you remember? Were you old enough to go into that?
No, I knew where it was, but I was never in there. No.
Across from Hank's Frank's.
Correct.
With a local, yeah.
They used to call that.
Where modern propane is, right in that area.
Yeah.
They used to call that Sin Strip.
Yeah. Well, because there was a lot of bars and
Yeah.
taverns on Route 46, correct?
Yeah. I remember Luciano's. You know what? I can't remember. I know Luciano's was on 46, right where the Quick Check is. I think right in that location. Kingy's Diner. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember that. You remember Kingy's Diner?
Oh, sure, I do.
Yeah, it's all these things,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's touch a little bit about the Gazette, Art. So, Artie Maggs writes a monthly article in the Gazette newspaper. So it's called Artful Thinking. So pick up a Gazette and you'll get to read one of his articles every month. He writes a special article about something that either transpired in his life or what he's feeling at the time, and he writes a monthly article here in the Gazette. How did you ever come about to work for the Gazette?
Well, to make a long story short, if that's possible, I used to work for Joe Paci, who owned the Paci Press down on First Street.
Right.
Him and his brother, who was eventually the mayor, Chris Paci, back in those days, and the DeProspo, Mr. DeProspo, and they were looking for somebody to come, and now this is going way back into the 70s, and they needed somebody to cover some of the Lodi games, Lodi football. So I started, at the time it was called the Lodi Messenger. So I started doing that, me and a Lodi kid by the name of Glenn Russo, and it snowballed from there. And then he used to let me print my poetry in there and stuff like that, and then it became the weekly news, and I continued doing that. And then they sold the newspaper to the Observer in Hasbrook Heights under Rose Heck, who was the assemblywoman back then.
She was a mayor, was she? Was the mayor?
She was also the mayor, yeah. And I wrote for them for a long time, and I actually was lucky. And my uncle Sonny Pizzenti, Lou Pizzenti, used to take films up on the press box on the roof. Yeah. And I used to cover the games, and I was lucky enough to catch the Lodi High School championship game when they beat Lenape Valley by 1 point. And it was an extra point kick by Anthony DeSimone, John DeSimone's son. And that from there, they wanted me to do a thing called One Life in Lodi. So I was lucky enough, and a lot of this stuff is on the on the Lodi Library webpage. I interviewed no less than 50 World War II veterans from Lodi, including, most of them are still on there, and some of these stories were really heart-rending. All of these guys were left home to go fight a war, and I came across all their letters. In Lodi, they used to have the Soldiers Welfare Committee, and all of these women would send them, they would knit money belts and stockings and clothing and all of that. And I read a lot of the letters that these guys overseas were writing back to the Welfare Committee.
And you did an article on that? And
Tons of them.
Tons of articles on that? And that was for the Observer at the time?
That was for the Observer, yes, and it also leaked into the Gazette. And so the library put them all on their webpage, which is a great honor for me.
And you continue to write for the Gazette today?
I'm still with the Gazette today. And a girl by the name of Kathy Brunetti, who worked for the Observer back then, she said, why don't we call it artful thinking?
Yeah.
I said, fine, and let me just throw this in. We have, according to Fritz, who's the owner of the newspaper, we have over 50,000 readers read my column.
Yeah.
All over the United States.
Well, I know I try to read every month, although I didn't get this month's. I know that you said that this month's newspaper came out.
It's out, yeah. I could drop it over.
And in there you were talking about, what is your article about this month?
Well, actually, it's a, I did a long series called Growing Up on Westervelt Place. And this one, although it is fiction, I put fiction, but it's about the kids from Westervelt Place. And, geographically, it's all intact. But it's a little Halloween story about kids going up. There used to be a barn up on, that was all farmland up there along Farnham Avenue. And it used to be barns. The barns were still standing when I was growing up. And it was all hillside. There were no houses up there. And we used to go, actually, and I write about, I hate to steal the dialogue, but we used to get...
Interesting.
We used to, back in those days, and we used to go up to Catone's barn out there and play in the barn. And at Catone, you'd say, get out of there, you kids. And we used to run down the hill. But we used to, in the summertime, now in Lodi was going through a little bit of a transitional stage because people were moving in, new homes were going up, and they used to leave these big refrigerator boxes all over the place. We used to cut the refrigerator boxes down and go sleigh riding in July down the hillside. The grass used to get...
Yeah, and you quoted right, yeah.
And that's how we entertain.
So that's kind of what your article is about this month.
It's about a haunted house that I made up, but everything else is real. It's humorous. So thanks for bringing that up.
So before we're gonna go play, we're gonna go perform a couple of songs. You guys are gonna perform a couple of songs. Before we get into that, when did you actually start playing guitar?
Well, Artie's the real guitar player. I'm taking lessons,
Okay.
but he is the...
So, Art, you said that Joey Bart actually
Yeah.
was instrumental in you playing.
Totally. Yeah. As a matter of fact, he's still teaching me bar chords and stuff like that till this day.
And we're hopefully getting Joey Bart and his band, The Individuals, in here in a couple of weeks, hopefully, to interview them, and then they're going to perform.
Oh man, he's the greatest.
You guys formed this group called To the Road. And how often do you actually get out and play together? And, well, I know with the COVID now, I mean, things have changed a lot, but prior to the virus...
Well, we were doing a lot of shows, Garfield, we would do the Senior Center in Hasbrook Heights, the Senior Center in Lodi, we'd get a call out of
Westwood, right?
Westwood, so they know, if they want to hear good music, and, we do a combination of guitar, singing, also with karaoke. I have the whole karaoke set up. So, but we kind of got away from that a little bit, where it's more just guitar, singing, like that kind of.
Okay, and I know just before we started, while we were talking before, we spoke about the Beatles. I guess both of you guys were influenced by the Beatles. So, who were, besides the Beatles, who were some of your musical influences that drove you into getting into music and performing, and who influenced you as a...
I also like the Rascals, because one of the guys, Eddie Brigatti, was out of Garfield, so that was like a local you know, celebrity, you know, but the Rolling Stones, all of those British invasion groups, growing up in high school, it was great. And of course, even all the American groups that were putting out records, the Four Seasons, all these groups that were Tommy James, a whole combination of music, you know, you just sort of saturated yourself with it. And I always liked to sing. Even, I can't remember the first time the first time I actually sang was at a dance at the middle school, which was the high school back then, in 1970. The band was playing, they had a band, and I just got up with the band, and the guy, I think I knew the group, so he just let me sing along with them, you know, and I was like, whoa, this is great, you know, I want to do this, right. You know, but and it was great, it was a dance, so we had fun. Yeah. So from there, I always went on a cruise, I might have sang on a cruise ship, they had karaoke, all that, so.
You were on the Titanic,
yeah,
right?
I was on the Titanic.
Well, speaking of but speaking of which, that you like to perform and sing, you're also in an a cappella.
Oh, I also sing in an a cappella group.
Do you still do that now?
Yeah, that group is called Party of Five. So we got guys from, I mean, they travel by my house once a week. I don't know how they do it. They are dedicated. One guy comes out of Yonkers, another guy comes out of Bayonne, you know, then the other two are from Dumont and Woodridge. But actually we have a party Saturday night. An anniversary party, so it's a backyard party. We're going to be outside, right. So hopefully that goes well, you know.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And Art, who were some of your musical influences?
Well, yeah, my older brother always had the radio playing, so I was exposed. And so my mother and father always had the radio playing. My mother was with her sisters. They had a little singing group when I was a little kid. But I you know, Aretha Franklin, James Brown, the Shirelles, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Chuck Berry, those were the groups that I was really influenced by. I used to love that sound.
Some more of the soul and R&B.
Oh yeah, I used to love that. Yeah, R&B. Yeah, and of course, and my brother was into that, you know, that rock and roll. Classical rock and roll back in the 50s.
So Elvis, I would assume Elvis had to be somewhat.
Yeah, well, yeah, Elvis. Yeah, he was big. Yeah. And of course, you know, when the Beatles came out, I was like 15 years old, and that's a really that Beatlemania stuff. I was in the thick of it with all of these kids. So that's basically.
Did you ever get to see them perform the Beatles? No.
Nope, never did.
Okay. A little bit about today's music. I mean, we always focus on classic rock or music from the past. Does anybody today spark your interest? Do you listen to anything today of the younger music that's out there now? I mean, there's not too many bands anymore, like we consider, you know, bands, but I mean.
Yeah, I don't really, you know, I listen to the radio, but I usually, when I'm driving around, I have a CD in of a group that I want to listen to.
Right.
Some of the music that's on the, whatever the top 20 is, I have no idea, because your tastes change, you know, and somehow or another, me personally, I still like the old stuff, you know, and it still sounds good today, right. So I'm not, you know, and I listen to that, you know, at home I'll put a CD on or in my car, you know, and I'm okay with that.
I listen to a lot of contemporary country western, you know.
Country's.
That's a great venue. You know, groups like Iconopop, some of those techno rock groups that I like, and a lot of the young kids that are coming up now are really talented and very innovative. You know, and it's very difficult now for a rock and roll group to be original. So they really have to, you know, find other avenues to really express themselves. And nowadays, you know, they can't really, you know, they can't tour like they used to, you know, so it's got to be tough. At selling records now, you know, all they have to do is go on the internet and listen to the stuff. So it's a whole new, but I like today's music a lot, yeah.
Okay. All right. Stick around, stay tuned. We're going to break this down, and they're going to perform a few songs for us in a couple of minutes, so stick around.
Can I do a commercial?
All right, Lodi and friends of social media, here to perform for you are Two for the Road.
Thank you very much. I want to get a message out to Joe Bart. Hey, if you're watching this, please shut the TV off until we're done. Me and Jack, recently, just to tell you a quick story, me and Jack entered a singing contest. Now, we sent in a little CD to the judges, and a week later, right, Jack?
Yeah.
I get a call from the judge, and he says, Artie Maglianico, Two for the Road. I said, yeah. He said, listen, we got your CD, and I have good news and bad news. What do you want? I said, well, give me the good news first. He says, well, the good news is you came in second. I said, wow, that ain't bad. I said, what's the bad news? He says, well, you were the only entry. All right. Matchbox. In a matchbox holding my clothes. I'm sitting here watching in a matchbox holding my clothes. I ain't got no matches, but I sure got a long way to go. I'm a lonely poor boy and I'm a long way from home. Yes, I'm a lonely poor boy and I'm a long way from home. I've never been happy, cause everything I ever did was wrong.
Well, you don't want my peaches, honey, please don't shake my tree. I said you don't want my peaches, honey, please don't shake my tree. I got news for you, baby, I'll leave you here in misery. In a matchbox holding my clothes. I'm sitting here watching a matchbox holding my clothes. I ain't got no matches, but I sure got a long way to go.
Thank you very much.
Very nice. Very nice.
We're going to do a tune by the Beatles called I've Just Seen a Face. And a one, and a two. I've just seen a face, I can't forget the time or place where we just met. She's just a girl for me, and I want all the world to see me met. Had it been another day, I might have looked the other way, and I'd have never been aware. But as it is, I'll dream of her tonight.
Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again.
I have never known the like of this. I've been alone and I have missed things and kept out of sight. When other girls were never quite like this.
Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again. And she keeps calling me back again.
I've just seen a face, I can't forget the time or place where we just met. She's just a girl for me, and I want all the world to see we've met.
Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again. Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling me back again. Falling, yes I'm falling, and she keeps calling me back again.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the group and myself, and I hope we pass the audition. Remember that? Let it be.
One more? Okay, here to perform their last song, not a second time from the Beatles, Two for the Road.
You know you made me cry. I see no use in wondering why I cry for you. And now you change your mind. I see no reason to change mine. I cry it through. Oh, you're giving me the same old line. I'm wondering why. You hurt me then, you're back again. No, 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 not a second time. Cry. I see no use in wondering why I cry for you, yeah. And now you've changed your mind. I see no reason to change mine. I cry it through. Oh, you're giving me the same old line. I'm wondering why. You hurt me then, you're back again. No, 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 not a second time.
Not a second time. Not a second time. No, 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 not a second time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lodi.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
All right, Lodi and friends of social media, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Artie Maggs and Jack Sapiti for coming in, talking Lodi, as always, and for doing a couple songs for us and performing today. I'd like to provide them each with a Lodi Police Department challenge coin. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Wow.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
Thank you
So much for coming in. Lodi, have a great day. Stay strong, stay safe, and thank you.